Hello and welcome to 5 Minutes from Friendship. I'm Clint Louie. I have in my hands a paper where somebody has asked and said, can you explain the book of Proverbs? Now that's a wonderful question. Can you explain the book of Proverbs? Well, the Proverbs in the Bible are made up of short statements. Oftentimes they're one verse. Sometimes you might find them 2 verses, 3 verses, or even more, but most often one verse. And so you look at them, short statements that are designed and given to us by God to make us think and receive the wisdom of the Lord. In other words, in just a few words, God teaches us a lot of truth. He says so much in just a few words. This is what Proverbs is all about. Have you ever, if you're like me, have you ever had to learn something the hard way? Man, I've got so many t-shirts in my closet that say, I learned it the hard way, or I learned what not to do. You had to learn it the hard way. Somebody tried to tell you. Somebody tried to explain it to you. Somebody gave you good advice. You didn't want to do what they said, so you had to learn the hard way. Well, you know, God gives us the Proverbs so that we don't have to learn it the hard way. He gives us the Proverbs so that we might learn it and we might listen to what God says, and it can spare us so much pain in our lives. Now, listen to this. The greatest book for anything in your life that you're going to need, that you're going to ask questions about, the greatest resource material that you could ever have is given to you right here in the Bible, and especially right here in the Proverbs. What I mean by that is, for example, if you need good relationship advice, in other words, marriage advice, if you need marriage wisdom, marriage counsel, turn to the book of Proverbs. It'll make you husbands to be better husbands, make you wives to be better wives. You want advice on how to raise your children? Turn to the book of Proverbs. You can read in there things about parents and children. You want advice about money and finances? Turn to the book of Proverbs. Listen, it's more than just advice. It's truth. It's God's wisdom. And you and I ought to learn to listen to what God says about everything in life in the book of Proverbs. See, the Proverbs are so practical. The Proverbs get down to where the rubber meets the road, as they used to say. The Proverbs get down here to where I'm living right now. So if I'm a student in school, the Proverbs will give me God's wisdom on how to be a student in school in God's way. If I'm a child at home, the Proverbs are there for me. If I'm pastoring a church, the Proverbs are there for me. If I'm trying to teach a Sunday school class, the Proverbs are there. Whatever it is, if you're working at the job, the Proverbs will show you how to be a better employee and be an employee that pleases God and how to get ahead. So what I'm saying to you is this. The Proverbs are little short statements that teach us deep truth. Let me give you an example of one. I read this here just a moment or two ago. Proverbs 21 and verse 3. To do justice and judgment is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. And what does that mean? To do justice and judgment is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. That's Proverbs 21:3. What that means is it is more acceptable with God for us to do right than it is to come and ask forgiveness. Now, that's not saying that God doesn't delight in forgiveness, and it's not saying that God is not willing and faithful to forgive. But it is saying that it's better to do right to start with than to do wrong and then seek forgiveness later, because you might have to pay some consequences and go through some hardships before things get straightened out in your life. So in other words, it's better and it's more acceptable with God to just say, you know what, I'm going to love righteous, I'm going to do right, than it is to say, well, it's okay to do right and I can get forgiveness later on. That's not acceptable with God. So you get the idea. Proverbs, little short statements that you should meditate and think on, and it'll pack a punch in your life. A lot of people, there's 31 chapters in Proverbs, so a lot of people take one chapter a day because there's 31 days in a month. One chapter a day, 31 days in most months, and 31 chapters in Proverbs. So just a little word about the book of Proverbs. I hope it helps you. God bless you. Have a great day.